Starting. And we are on the air. And this is the TWIS Minion Science Island Hangout. And in tonight's adventure, and tonight's going to be a real adventure, I can see that. We have our friend Dale. Dale sitting comfortably in his hotel room. How you doing tonight, Dale?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
That's great to hear. I'm doing great as well. I'm hearing echoes. My headphones weren't working. I don't know what else. But, hey, we've also got Kyle. Kyle from Minnesota, who has ordered some pizza.
Yep. Right now they're checking the quality.
There you go. You got an app for checking the quality of your pizza. What else can happen?
Oh, yeah. Oh, now they just sent it out for delivery. Oh, I know who. I know everybody who works over there because they come through Walmart in the middle. Not while I'm working.
Cool.
Kind of funny. Yeah.
Okay, you're all set up. Your buddy's taking care of you.
Yeah.
And for tonight, I might as well tell you what's on the agenda. I got no clue what we're going to get to. Our friend Justin Jackson, fashionably late, might pop in an hour. Pamela can't be here for a while. She might pop in from time to time. So basically, it's me, Dale, and Kyle. And I'm going to try to update people on Pluto, NASA, on the NASA site. Some of the latest news regarding Pluto. And Ceres. Ceres is a dwarf planet that's just not getting any love. All we hear about is Pluto, 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 the dwarf planet. Well, Ceres is a dwarf planet too. I had a story in the agenda, but they covered it on TWIS last night, and I had a great time on TWIS. But I found another particle story. It's called the Weyl Fermions, and it's a massless particle that had been predicted about 80 years ago, and its existence has been confirmed. What else? Well, we got some bacteria-controlled robots. Robots controlled by bacteria. And a few other stories. Buckyballs, if we get to it. But I'm going to start right in. Going on to the NASA site. Let me get the old screen share going. And there we are, hopefully. You guys can see the wonderful picture.
Oh, yeah.
And this is of Pluto's moon, Charon. And I think one of the great things is, you want to find out what's going on at NASA, you just pop over to the NASA site. And the latest story they're talking about is, if you can see it right on the upper left corner, you got this little rock thing, and it's a depression with a peak in the middle. And it's approximately 240 miles top to bottom. There are very few visible craters. And our friend Jeff Moore is telling me it's the most intriguing feature is a large mountain sitting in a moat. And this is a feature that has the geologists stunned, stumped, and amazed. The image has a preview of what the surface of this large moon will look like in future close-ups from NASA. This image is heavily compressed, and sharper versions are anticipated when full fidelity data from New Horizons long-range reconnaissance imager is returned to Earth.
Oh, it's coming back? Boy, I work too much.
When the transmission is coming back.
Oh, okay. I was like, I'm like.
No, New Horizons is not coming back, I'm
okay.
afraid. It's just the image that's coming back.
I'm sure there's somebody other than me who had this misunderstanding, and if they watch our video, now they know. I was
Okay.
like the second that happened, so.
All right. Now I'm hearing an echo, so I hope the people in the audience are not hearing an echo as well. If you do, I apologize. It's probably just my my headphones. The next story I'm going to get to is well, Pluto's a dwarf planet, and Pluto has gone through a couple of cataloging transformations. And if Pluto, this is my opinion is, if Pluto as a dwarf planet is going to be listed by some people in the list of planets, then we have to include Ceres, because Ceres is also a dwarf planet. In fact, there are several other dwarf planets. And really, these kinds of classifications really only have meaning if you're an astronomer. If you're not an astronomer, no big deal. Ceres, it's the largest object in the asteroid belt. It lies between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. And it's massive enough for its shape to be in hydrostatic equilibrium under its own gravity, but it has not cleared the neighborhood around its orbit. It has not cleared out the neighborhood. The term dwarf planet was adopted in 2006 as part of a three-way categorization of bodies orbiting the Sun.
My pizza's here. I'll be right there. 1 second.
Right. Pizza break, everybody. Brought about by an increase in the discovery of objects further away from the Sun than Neptune that rival Pluto in size, and finally precipitated by the discovery of an even more massive object called Ceres.
Oh, I found it. That was
Mute mic for a bit. Okay. Reading on. The internet. The people who have make these categorizations are the International Astronomical Union, and they currently recognize 5 dwarf planets: Ceres, Pluto, Haumea, Makemake. There's an asteroid, or there's a dwarf planet called Makemake. Come on, you can do better than that. And Ceres. And Ceres was the first asteroid discovered by Giuseppe Pizzai, or something like that, at Palermo in the year 1801. It was originally considered a planet, but was reclassified as an asteroid in the 1850s, when many other objects in similar orbits were discovered. The categorization of Ceres has changed more than once, and it has been the object of some disagreement. And Johann Elert Bode believed Ceres to be the missing planet he had proposed, that exists between Mars and Jupiter at a distance of 419 million kilometers from the Sun. Ceres was assigned a planetary symbol and remained listed as a planet in astronomy books and tablets for about half a century. As other objects were discovered in the neighborhood of Ceres, it was realized that Ceres represented the first of a new class of objects in 1802, with the discovery of Pallas. And a guy by the name of William Herschel coined the term asteroid for these bodies, writing that they resembled small stars so much as hardly to be extinguished from them, even by very good telescopes of that time. Ceres was the first one, And then Ceres, under the modern system of minor planet designation by the 1860s, the existence of a fundamental difference between asteroids such as Ceres and other major planets was widely accepted. Around 2006, there was a debate surrounding Pluto, and what constituted a planet. That led to Ceres being considered to be reclassified as a planet. And a proposal between the International Astronomical Union for the benefit of Kyle. My feedback is coming at your end, I'm afraid. So could you mute your mic, please?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Where am I? We've got pizzas. We've got people relaxing. I'm losing my place here. I don't know. You get the point. I'm going to stop right there because you guys get the point. And when it comes down to the difference between a dwarf planet and a regular ordinary planet, really comes down to its gravitational. It's gravitational.
You know what? It's very confusing, and I'm guessing that maybe the planetary societies or whatever group creates these designations, it's been a moving target over the ages, and it's confusing everybody. Because I get confused over the explanations, and I think they have, at the very least, a promotional problem where they're not promoting the classification system very well, or the media isn't translating it properly, because anytime they talk about planets and asteroids, it shocks me that you're calling Ceres an asteroid, which is what you read from that article.
Originally, that's what it was called.
When I look at that, that's not what I think of when I think of an asteroid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, it may be that I don't understand the classification, but it also means that for someone that's interested in science, they're not doing a very good job of promoting and educating what these things actually are. Or perhaps they're confused themselves because it's a moving target that they keep shifting.
You're exactly right. It's a moving target. They make more observations. And I mean, if they have these 5 celestial bodies designated dwarf planets because of their gravitational pull, they don't have enough gravity to pull in other objects that are surround them. Now, as we make more observations, there's probably going to be hundreds of these things. Even in our old solar system, we're going to find hundreds of these dwarf planets. And you know, like you say, the public see, they see planet. You know, it's a planet. It's a dwarf. It's a little planet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I see. And you know what? They're going to probably keep rewriting this stuff over and over in the future because they're learning. And they're shocked. They try to put rules in place, but then something sort of breaks those rules, and it breaks the classification system, and then they have to retreat back and think of a new way to classify things. So I'm not sure if that is the factor or not, but it certainly seems like it. But when I look at these things, they look like moons or planets of conventionally what I think they are from an uneducated sort of point of view.
Yeah, I can imagine if you go to one of their conferences. I mean, in that little story I read, there were 2 people who completely disagreed over whether or not the classification, and that's just 2 people in this one little story. You go to the conference, I can imagine people pounding tables and yelling and, you know, let's take a vote. It's 96 to 97. Let's take another vote.
Yeah, totally. Trying to get scientific consensus is sometimes like herding cats.
It's I don't know. It's anyway. If the people who write the stories for the public could simply talk about, you know, this gravitational difference. It's a you have some planets, designated planets, that have a lot of gravity. And as they say, They clear the neighborhood because they got so much gravity, and they affect the gravitational orbits of other planets and things, of other objects. And then you've got these dwarf planets, and it's all about the gravitational pull. And that's it. They just don't have as much gravity as other celestial bodies. And if somebody could explain, I mean, it's not that complicated, really.
So gravity is created by its mass, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So then ultimately, whether something is a planet or not is based on its mass?
No, not that. It's not quite that simple. It's got. I think maybe it's mass in relationship to the other objects in space around it. Maybe that's it. Let me go back to Wikipedia. Nah, I was not in Wikipedia, you dummy person. And it says minor planet designation. The formal minor planet designation are number name combinations overseen by the Minor Planet Center. We got a whole center devoted to these things. Let me look up dwarf planet. Let me learn how to spell dwarf planet. Here we go, dwarf planet. It's a planetary mass object, neither a planet nor a natural satellite. And I think there's something called a hydrostatic equilibrium under its own gravity. Okay, what the heck is hydrostatic equilibrium?
Well, breaking it apart, hydro means water, right?
Mm-hmm.
Static means
fluid.
Or still. So, still water? Is that what, Justin, what does hydrostatic mean? Quick, you have 5 seconds.
It means it's cool with water, as opposed to hydrophobic, which is afraid of water.
Hydrostatic?
Hydrostatic, maybe it's neutral to it?
Yeah.
Well, it says it's said to be, let's see, a fluid is said to be in a hydrostatic equilibrium or hydrostatic balance when it is at rest or when the flow's velocity at each point is consistent over time. This occurs when external forces such as gravity are balanced by a pressure gradient force. For instance, the pressure gradient force prevents gravity from collapsing Earth's atmosphere into a thin, dense shell, whereas gravity prevents the pressure gradient force from diffusing the atmosphere into space. I don't know if that clarified anything.
Not for me. I don't get it.
It almost seems like tides. An external gravity, right? The moon creates the tides, does it not, on Earth?
Yeah.
So maybe in order for something to be called a planet, it cannot be hydrostatic. Because hydrostatic means no tides. That means it's static, right? It's still. So if there isn't enough gravity created from an external mass, like Ceres or whatever is orbiting Pluto, but they call it a dwarf planet, don't they?
Yes.
Oh, so I'm really confused now.
They use a phrase, it has not cleared the neighborhood. And that seems to be the basic difference between a dwarf planet and a regular planet, is that with the dwarf planet, its gravitation isn't strong enough to quote-unquote clear the neighborhood.
Okay, so it's in the Kuiper belt, which is full of big rocks. Mm-hmm. So it needs to be large enough to clear the neighborhood. So I guess they mean it these rocks bump into it and create impacts, and thereby clearing the neighborhood. That's pretty weak.
It can't set up. All the other rocks that go into it cannot set off course and leave the area. You know, maybe like that.
Well, if anybody's watching, I think we've gone from confusion to complete and outright chaos, I think.
Yeah, well, when I came in, I thought we were talking about folded proteins, so I was off by a few dozen or so scales of magnitude.
Justin, you're going to save us tonight. We need the Justin brain in this hangout, that's for sure. We started out, I'm hearing echoes in my microphone. Then I couldn't hear Dale for a while. And we're having fun. But let me plow ahead into the next story. Now, last night on This Week in Science, you guys covered the plant cork, five corks connected, and I had that story, so I'm not going to use it. So we've got a new particle. Oh, Justin, you can't. Let me screen share the lineup for you, so you can see what the heck it is we're talking about. That's always kind of helpful. Okay, and we're at story number 2, and these are something called Weyl, Weyl pheromones. And they're a massless particle that was predicted 85 years ago, and they've finally been able to confirm its existence. And this is from Princeton University. And this particular particle, the claim is it could hold promise for the next generation of electronics. And scientists, they have discovered these Weyl, I'll call them pheromones, elusive massless particles, theorized 85 years ago that give rise to faster and more efficient electronics because of their unusual ability to behave as matter and antimatter inside a crystal. Now, I want to screen share this with you, so you don't have to look at the top of my head. That's never a pretty sight. Okay, there we go. There it is. There's our good old friend, the massless particle, the Weyl pheromones. And they were proposed by a mathematician and physicist, Hermann Weyl, in 1929. And Weyl pheromones have long sought by scientists because they have been regarded as possible building blocks of other subatomic particles and are even more basic than negatively charged carrying electrons when electrons are moving inside a crystal. Their basic nature means that Weyl pheromones could provide a much more stable and efficient transport of particles than electrons, which are the principal particle behind modern electronics. Unlike electrons, Weyl pheromones are massless and possess a high degree of mobility. The particle's spin is both in the same direction as its motion, which is known as being right-handed, and in the opposite direction in which it moves, or left-handed. The physics of Weyl pheromones are so strange there could be many things that arise from this particle that we're just not capable of imagining. And this was corresponding author Zahid Hassan, Princeton professor of physics. For physicists, the Weyl pheromones are most notable for behaving like a composite of monopole and anti-monopole particles when inside a crystal. This means that Weyl particles that have opposite magnetic-like charges can nonetheless move independently of one another and with a high degree of mobility. The researchers also found that Weyl pheromones can be used to create massless electrons that move very quickly with no backscattering. Wherein electronics, wherein electrons are lost when they collide with an obfuscation with something. In electronics, backscattering hinders efficiency and generates heat, while electrons simply move through and around roadblocks. It's like they have their own GPS and steer themselves without scattering. Uh-oh. What's going on, guys? Somebody just fell down. I don't know what happened. I'm moving on. I hope nobody got hurt by that weird noise I just heard.
Oh, I didn't hear it on this end.
Okay, I guess it must be me. Anyway, they will move and move only in one direction since they
I heard the noise.
Okay, since they are either right-handed or left-handed, and never come to an end because they just tunnel through. These are very fast electrons that behave like unidirectional light beams and can be used for new types of quantum computing. While this guy Weyl originally suggested his pheromones as an alternative to the theory of relativity proposed by his colleague Albert Einstein. This is another guy, Ashvan Vishnuen, a professor of physics at the University of Columbia, Berkeley, commented, Professor Hassan's experiments report the observation of both the unusual properties in the bulk of the crystal as well as the exotic surface states that were theoretically predicted. While it is early to say what practical applications these discoveries might have, it is worth noting that Weyl materials are direct, three-dimensional electron analogs of graphene, which is being seriously studied for potential applications. And I see Pamela. Pamela has also shown up. Okay. Questions? Comments?
Well, direct 3D electronic analogs of graphene. So graphene has a certain molecular shape. And I'm just interested in what they mean by these materials are direct 3D electronic analogs of graphene. So does that mean they're similar to graphene, but there's no molecular shape? Because they're actually, what are they again? They're massless particles. That confuses me.
The application would be in a crystal. These are something happening in a crystal. And I guess because they're massless, and because it must be a technique for making electrons massless, so that there's no resistance as they're moving through this crystal or whatever the heck you want to call it. So it's the lack of resistance and their ability to move very quickly and efficiently. Whereas with electrons, there's always some loss of heat when they're moving through.
Yeah, that they were calling it backscattering, which created heat. And it sounds a lot like collisions, right? Where they're colliding, and that creates an inefficiency, which bleeds off as heat. Where these Weyl particles don't have that issue. Sounds like really intense material science.
Well, the other, I mean, these were mathematically predicted 85 years ago, and it's only that now that they've been able to have the technology to confirm their existence.
Which is absolutely brilliant. Again, this is always the science works, and the rudimentary things we may have figured out in the past. Can you hang on a second? Those rudimentary things that we had figured out in the past with pencil and paper on chalkboards before the invention of the whiteboard work, and it might take 90 years to find the proof of it, but it means that we've been on the right track with science for so long that we've, in a lot of realms, just taken this long to catch up with ourselves. And that's pretty awesome. I mean, you don't get that in everything, you know. I've been having this sort of ongoing conversation with this person that believes in what is it called? Some sort of consciousness beyond the brain, and sort of psychic ability stuff.
Deepak?
No, but would sound very much like that, except doesn't agree with
New Age nonsense.
Yeah, but he finds. I mean, he's got a professor. I think it's a Michael Bems or something Bems, who did, and we reported it on TWIS. He had the precognitive test where he would show images, and and right before you could get a slight response from the brain before, if it was going to be a sexual image, before it was presented, something of this nature. There have been a lot of criticisms of the techniques that are used in experimental psychology because in order to have a better test, they do lots of different versions of the test, all of which have different, reliability ratings. So one is off by 1 or 2%, one's off by 3 or 4%, one's off by 5 or 6%. But by merging them all under theoretical psychology, this is how you get the perfect test. Anywhere else in science, you're taking tests with different parameters and merging them together, and it makes nonsense out of any other sort of science. But
searching for the right answer until you find the one that you want.
And that's sort of, this is also part of what, how many times are these experiments done? Which ones do you publish? Sort of a thing. Like, there's a lot of skepticism, right? And I'm pointing out there's a lot of skepticism. I mean, and he makes valid points back, too. He's an intelligent guy that I talk to, except for this belief. But part of it comes down to, in what he's saying, is that nobody takes it seriously enough to really look at the science and really pursue it and really follow it. But one of the things that I find fascinating, and we can be talking about religion, or psychic activity, or any of these things, where now we keep pushing things off into the ethereal, right? Like, God is now somehow involved in both quantum space and was there before the Big Bang now to make it happen. But as science progresses, it pushes everything else out further and further into the abstract. And the argument then was, well, isn't science on the verge of just understanding the abstract? Because you have quantum weirdness, and you have unknown questions of the origins of the Big Bang. And the answer is yes. There is always been abstraction at the edges of science. And at one point, those abstractions gave lots of territory for supernatural activity to be taking place. But as science has taken over more and more territory of understanding, that area which is the unknown, I mean, we can be talking about 100 years ago, and the Milky Way was the universe. Maybe Andromeda, that little nebula out there, could be added in. Maybe there were 2, right? But as we push back, now there's hundreds of billions of galaxies that we can see. So we've pushed back further and further the territory that is the domain of science. And I don't think you would ever start a religion or a belief in psychic activity if you only first discovered it as that abstraction. I don't think it starts that way. What it starts as is Thor's hammer is the sound of thunder and the spark makes the lightning. You start with the physical, it's active in a day-to-day, visceral sort of way, and then gives up ground continually as science and reason takes over. And the same thing, I don't think you could have a belief in a what would you call it, precognitive action within a few milliseconds in a laboratory, you wouldn't necessarily believe that result if it wasn't for Miss Cleo or Uri Geller or hundreds of years of mystics doing psychic surgeries, or in religion, people talking to God and pointing out people in an audience by name. If we didn't have the parlor tricks first, right, or the mythological answers for things first, I don't think we'd be having people hanging on to the abstract.
Our pattern-seeking brains necessitate the filling of it with bullshit when we don't.
Totally.
And yeah, you're right. And then as we backfill it with rational, repeatable, predictable scientific theories, we slowly back out of it. And you know what? What you're describing is very interesting. You're not? Can you hear me still? Everybody.
I can hear you. You stopped moving, but we can hear you.
Oh, okay. So I think it's very important. You may be on to something much larger, which is maybe religion will back out to the point, as science fills it in, that in a generation religion will be close to non-existent.
Well, and look, if you listen to the evangelicals of today, they talk much more about a personal relationship with God. And there's almost no mention of God as mover, changer of fates. Well, there's an element of that, but we used to get the sun and the moon and the tides and everything came from this, and there was no evolution, and there wasn't. We were created and built this way by the hand of. And as we backfilled all the information of the history, the origin, and all these other things, it forces religion into these more abstract versions of there's no longer a man with a beard up in the clouds, which made perfect sense a couple thousand years ago. Now nobody can really believe that, so you have to have this abstract transcendent being who may or may not actually have a beard, who is in some dimension beyond our own, in perhaps a non-physical form, who may not actively interact with us on that. It gets to the point where it's like, well, what is the difference between that and anything? But my point though is, you would have a hard time making an argument in science saying, I understand that Newton was wrong, Einstein proved not to be effective at all, Faraday was totally incorrect. There is no connection between electricity and magnetism. All of science that we've built so far, the math, 2 + 2 always is, sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 6. All of that has been wrong. And yet,
we can write it.
Right? And yet we still believe in the Big Bang. We still believe we understand what's going on to some degree at the quantum level. We still believe the most abstract, non-clear elements of science, even though everything else in between has been wrong. And that, to me, is what I'm hearing when I'm hearing somebody believe in these Faraday cage psychic experiments, or in a religion with a transcendent being, or universal consciousness, or whatever it is. They've abandoned all of the things that would lead them up to even caring about that answer, that were all now gone and not being clung to anymore.
So you've come up with a mathematical equation where scientific progress is proportional to religious abstraction.
And to some degree it is, and to some degree it happens naturally within religions themselves. The Hindus have these many gods. Some are beheadings, some have elephant heads. I don't pretend to understand the Hindu religion properly. But the ashrams or the Vedics or whatever, when they get to progress to higher and higher levels of being guru-worthy, it becomes less and less about the specifics of the religion. And you don't actually need to be talking about a specific god or interact or believe in a god. And it's sort of like the more enlightened within the Hindu religion also are like giving up the ground. You know, they're already like, yeah, well, maybe that's not how it really works. And we should just look inward for some of these answers and try to figure stuff out separately from all. It's like the religion is for the peasants. For the truly enlightened, you don't need all the specific stuff because, yeah, I don't really believe it anymore.
I'd like to think that we all believe more in science in the future, and that's where people will go. But I'm shocked by. I had a conversation. I'm away from home. I'm on business right now, and I met somebody in a coffee shop that was very religious, and they asked what I did for a living, and I said, well, I do TV, and they were interested in television on the how does it work, and I gave them some basic physics, some basic physical principles of how when you blend colors together, they make new colors. And this person thought that was astounding and thought that it was the devil's work, that something like this is possible. And that rocked my world. This was a 24-year-old who seemed to be a competent person that hasn't, mixed. When you were a little kid and you mix the colors with the finger paints and they make new colors. That's what this goes back to. And I was shocked that this was new. This was a new thing for them. So, I have so much hope for the future, but when I run into people, these very decent, genuine people, I mean, it was a very nice person, but when you don't understand that fundamental, everything is game. You can convince them that the bearded man in the sky does exist, and that I don't know how we fix that. Boy, oh boy.
So how do you get to what do you say 24? How do you get to 24 and not know that blue and yellow make green?
Well, I live in the Bible Belt in Canada, and if you know I think it's the deep southern U.S. They have the equivalent, right? You have the Bible Belt.
We get up pretty close to you too. We got the the Dakotas up there. That's Bible Belt territory too. That's getting pretty close to where you're at. So
it is. It's
more of a Bible corset. No, it's on the inside though. What would that be? It's like a Bible bowel movement. It's sort of in the core and then down south.
Okay, look, folks, I'm on the front lines here. I'm dying. I need your help. You guys need to insert yourselves.
I don't know. About half of my friends in Facebook are religious. They believe in religion. Some of them conservative. And the basic, hello, little person there. Who's actually, you've got two little persons there.
No, the other one's coming next week now. Anyway.
Oh, next week. Oh boy. All right, time to prepare. You got time. You can start get that breast milk pump working. So you got.
Wait, you're having another kid already? What happened? I've been. How long is this? I don't know. Nobody tells me anything anymore.
No, don't go off on too much of a tangent. But my great nephew is coming to hang out with us for a bit. He's 4 weeks old. He was coming today with about 10 minutes notice, but now I'm getting a few days notice.
Yeah, as I say, I get into a lot of discussion. When I first went on when I first went onto the internet, I went onto a website called The Friendly Christian, and I went on specifically, who the heck are these crazy Christian people? And once you talk to people, it does come down to what Justin talked about. It's that they, if you pray or whatever, and you feel you have some kind of connection, you feel a response from something, that's your evidence to believe that God exists, and that's happening because the people around you are reinforcing that belief for you. Now and that's what I believe. I believe because of what I was told. I had a secondhand faith. Secondhand faith is not going to survive. Once you go out in the world, unless you have that personal experience and feel like you have, it's just, you know, you're just going to stop believing. But the hardest thing for the people I know is the difference between probability. Anything is possible. It's all a matter of probability. And in science, you're evaluating the probability that something can happen. I mean, you got people that talked about string theory. That's pretty, you know, that's pretty far out. But they started with a mathematical, some math that had some degree of probability, a mathematical formula that actually worked. So their starting point is something that had scientifically some degree of probability. That theory is going by the boards because that probability is not increasing.
Well, that's a good point, and that goes back to what Justin, he mentioned. He knew somebody that wouldn't take his science seriously, which was he's investigating, I think it was paranormal things, but science costs money, and we have to investigate what's more probable. We have to start rationally, and that starts with investigating things that are highly probable and invest our money in our research dollars there. So I don't think there's a bias against this person that no one's taking him seriously. It's just that they have to start in the most probable areas, health sciences, and all sorts of things that can help mankind, things that are profitable, those types of things. But sorry, I mean, telepathy, it's not probable.
Well, that's why, what is his name, James Randi, with that whole test? You put him to the test. And you put him to a test under controlled conditions. That's science. I mean, to do a scientific experiment, you have to have it performed under controlled conditions. And when you do that, all that other sort of, you know, stuff just doesn't work. It doesn't work under controlled conditions.
I think this person also is doing a service, because he said this was a very smart, intelligent person, which is good.
Oh yeah.
There are many people out there that thought Einstein in early days was a kook. They thought that he didn't know what he was talking about, and it was such a fringe idea. It was unbelievable. So you know what? There are people on the fringe and that have to battle back to prove their theories and stuff. And even though I think it's completely improbable, I'm glad there's a lot of independent thinkers still that are doing this, even though they're not getting the support that they think they deserve. But maybe that'll make them want to work harder and try to find something in it.
Yeah, when you look at the surveys, there's a group called the Pew Research Center. And the reason why they're considered one of the more accurate surveys, they do a lot regarding religion and public opinion, is they use scientifically valid statistical sampling techniques. And you can go on their site, and when they do a survey, they will show you exactly how they arrived at that particular conclusion. X number of people were interviewed out of X number, etc. But again, it's people who live in an immersive religious community will continue to believe. Evangelical Christians are not losing their belief. It's the unaffiliated. It's people who are not in that immersive religious environment. They are the ones who are losing religious faith. But as long as you have people in that little religious community and their children go to school, to that, you know, their own school, and they go to Sunday school, all their friends, that immersive environment, they will continue to believe. But once you get outside that environment for any length of time, that's when people are accepting the scientific view.
In the outside environment, it's called the internet, and it's infecting everything on the planet. Yay!
Okay. I'm going to go on.
But
Oh, go ahead, Pamela.
you mean unusual? Anyway, no, but I was going to say with the internet, but people still segregate on the internet. I remember about 3 years ago now. If people want to do internet dating, that's fine. I personally have never signed up for it. I won't say that I never will because I might, but I really can't imagine ever having to. Anyway, so I was talking online on Facebook with a girl that I have known since 1984, right? So most of my life, because I was born in 1980, and she's Christian, and I didn't know how it came up on the thread. But she said, oh, but you should try, the Christian dating sites. And I'm like, I don't think the Christians want to date me. And then she gave me this big lecture about how she's Christian, but her husband's not. And I could be, missing out on my perfect match by judging them and blah, blah, blah. And she ended up unfriending me, after, on Facebook, as you do. And I said, well, I like to fuck a lot. I really don't think that it's going to work out, so no. But anyway, the point is the Christians have their own dating sites, right? So they only hang out with other Christians. So the internet doesn't really open everyone up. I didn't even know they had that until this conversation came up.
Because half of my Facebook friends are Christians, I keep getting invited to Christian dating sites, and I'm an atheist.
Yeah.
The algorithm is wrong. It's the algorithm, Dale. It's all screwed up.
It is. But the internet doesn't open up everything because they still stick to themselves.
Yeah, that's true. But you know what? I'm going to defend my point because I'm cognitively biased towards my own opinion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And who isn't? And who isn't?
Yeah.
That means that you were right and I'm wrong, but I'm having trouble admitting it.
But you know what happens?
I know what you mean. Like, no, the internet, it does, you would think that it means you can't remain ignorant, but people find ways to remain ignorant. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and also you can reinforce your ignorance with the internet. I mean, this is the internet is a plethora of knowledge and enlightenment for the curious-minded, but it is also a fantastic reinforcer of ignorant beliefs. I mean, this is you can go to follow threads of racist websites, jihadi websites, what have you. I mean, you can fall into a rabbit hole of people who believe whatever stupid thing you believe.
Have you guys ever been to a site called InfoWars?
And what is it? No, I know who you're talking about though. Somebody who decided to combine Art Bell with Morton Downey Jr.
Yeah.
And in doing so, is at the forefront of fuel for schizophrenic, paranoid beliefs across this country. Maybe
I briefly dated dated is a strong word, but I briefly hung out with a guy that is a subscriber.
Yeah, and I know a few people that subscribe to that sort of thought. And
currently, he has people freaking out about the Jade Helm maneuvers. I think it's Jade Helm is what it's called. That the U.S. military is running some operational maneuvers in Texas as a run-up to a practice to invading the state of Texas and taking it over. Of course, it got to the point where the Governor Perry, I guess his name is, Rick Perry, got the not the National Guard, the State Guard, I guess, whatever that is, to monitor. Well, he's had 5 people to monitor the activities of the U.S. military to make sure they didn't damage private property and maintained the. Well, the whole crazy thing about this is that Texas is where the military has been holding these maneuver drills for decades, because it's a lot like a desert, and it resembles other places where they might actually utilize these tactics and have been doing these maneuvers. This is where they do these large-scale practices, and have been for forever. But anybody who didn't know about it, and anybody who's slightly paranoid or schizophrenic and listens to the Info Warrior,
Alex Jones.
will freak the hell out. They're coming for us. They're gonna take our gold. You don't have any gold. Well, if I did, they'd be taking it, and I'd be unhappy about that. Right? Like, it's just
Okay, Justin, you look wound up. I've got the next story.
Hey, before we get there, I want Justin's opinion on this thing. I want all your opinions on this. Does Alex Jones actually believe what he's saying, or is it just a channel to make a fortune from? Or is it somewhere?
That's always a great question, and my problem with Alex Jones is that I have a hard time believing that he's that good of an actor. You look at a Glenn Beck, and I'd say Glenn Beck might only believe 4% of what he says, because he's a terrible actor. Like, even as he's saying it, I don't believe that he actually believes anything that he's saying. You know, it was the whole, is George Bush, is he incompetent or evil? I kind of always lean to the just doesn't give a F, right? Like, he's just playing a part, and he's only having to, you know, half-act it, right? He's going to do a sincere face. He's going to do his aggressive face. He's going to give it. You know, he has these little horrible bad acting jobs he fits into, but I don't know if I really believe that he's manipulating anything behind the scenes of this. I think he's been told to go out and cowboy up. This is the role. This is what the situation is. To go do it. Alex Jones, I do believe Alex Jones is probably, you know, suffering from something that has a number on the DMSO, whatever it is, the psychological list that he's could take a drug for, receive counseling for. And actually does believe like 99%, maybe 90% or more of what he's spitting out there.
You know, Alex, I've heard what you were talking about. How he thought the United States military was going to invade Texas or something. But I've put in a link into the chat area, and I'll screen share his site. Come on. Okay. Now, one of the things you'll notice is commercials.
There's telling you to buy gold and silver?
I don't know. Get rid of fluoride.
Yeah.
There you go. What I'd use for any disaster. Shield survival. Come on, this guy. This guy's got to be a marketer. Brain force.
Oh yeah, they're always selling you something on these things. They're always selling you something.
So I don't know if this guy. I'm thinking this guy is edging into con man territory. I don't know. Maybe he started out believing, and when he came out and he was questioning. Was it Chuck Norris or somebody? There's some martial arts guy. Might have been Chuck Norris. Chuck is whoever the guy is, he's also a conspiracy theorist nut, and he was kind of backing up Chuck Norris. I don't know.
You're not that Jesse Ventura guy.
Yep.
Is that who you mean?
I kind of like Jesse, the body Ventura. I kind of like that guy.
You like his body?
No, I wouldn't want to be carrying that around with me every day. But I do like him. I do. I love watching him in interviews. be off the deep end some of the time. He is a 9/11 conspiracy guy, but he's also when he's not on that subject, when he was talking about politics, and I think this is how he won an election in Minnesota to be the governor for a while, is that he doesn't have the talking points, and he doesn't have the script. He didn't get it from anybody. So every opinion he has is just his opinion on something. And so he has the flexibility of completely agreeing with the liberals over here, completely agreeing with the conservatives over there, being left of the Green Party, right of the Tea Party, and completely centrist on a whole breadth of other issues. Because he hasn't been trained to have a specific political view. And I think I kind of like that about him. Whether I agree with him on the thing or I'm not agreeing with him on the thing, I love the fact that he's not just going to be that one-sided viewpoint.
Have you guys looked into the 9/11 conspiracy things? Like, I don't believe any of it, because I don't believe the United States would attack itself in any way. I think that's ludicrous. But there was a building that fell down that was nearby.
Building 7. Yeah,
Building 7.
No reason for it to fall.
Yeah, so how could it fall? Is there any sort of science behind how it could reasonably fall?
No, actually, quite to the contrary. I have here an envelope I received from an engineer who witnessed the event, who actually managed to take pictures of devices that were.
Immediately took you off the air, Justin.
You're so funny. Yeah. No, we have actually discussed this on Meaningless Words years ago, and yeah, why did Building 7 fall? No one's come out with. So heaps of people come out with, all the conspiracy side of it, and no one has come out with. Well, no, actually, this is why it fell. So.
Okay, well, let me ask a question. So, do we know, did Building 7 fall? Like, what was the sequence of events? There's 2 towers that fell, the 2 main ones.
They were at 9 a.m. Building 7 was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon or something. It was, and it just, like demolition style, instead of going over.
Could the vibration from the first building falling affected the stability of the building? I wonder. Because we do seismic.
Well, how many blocks away? Blocks and blocks away, and nothing in between. That seems pretty dodge.
I don't know, because we do, like, they do seismic testing near our sites, and we hire geologists to measure the impact it'll have on our towers. And again, I'm not saying I know anything or agree or disagree. I can't think of a reasonable answer as to why Building 7 would fall. And I'm having trouble thinking that it was an inside job by the U.S. I just have a lot of trouble with that.
When Justin and I discussed it, we decided that we felt that the original World Trade Center was not an inside job, but it was a good opportunity to get rid of Building 7. So that might have been an inside.
Wow.
If you want to get rid of something. I mean, and look at how many people they threw their personal possessions into the World Trade Center that day to fake their own deaths, and that's come out years later. Like they weren't there, but then they saw an opportunity, and people getting out of marriages or whatever, they went through possessions in there and made it look like they were there, and then they turn up 3 years later and they've claimed their life insurance and stuff. So I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but people are opportunists, and the government can be too. If that was a good opportunity to get rid of Building 7, let's do it. For what reason, I don't know. But they did.
I agree. It's reasonable to think that people are opportunists. I just have a lack of confidence in a large government like the United States. Like, it seems like the larger an organization, the less organized they are. That's been my experience anyways. It gets ludicrous, in fact. Communication is awful. No one can keep a secret, but But I do agree, like what you said about how it's very reasonable that those human emotions transfer into all areas of society. But yeah, that one really kind of bugs me. Building 7. So did people die in Building 7?
Well, Dale, in the chat area, there's an article. The Daily Mail. Now, the Daily Mail is an English paper that's really not all that reliable. Very sensationally oriented. But it purports to show some, let me screen share.
And that should be all the proof anybody needs to see to know what really happened on 9/11.
Right.
Right.
There you go. Scroll down. This is a side view of Building 7 as it burns. Shows the extent of the fire in the building, even though it's across the street from the main world complex.
So,
okay, it's burning, and you can see it's burning. Buckling floors causing the building to collapse, though the entirety of the collapse is not shown in the video. It does show how there is legitimacy to the explanation provided by the government's 9/11 investigation. There you go.
So WTC 1 and 2, were those the Twin Towers that went down?
Yes.
Because they got a little map there, right?
and it's, look, you guys, it's just a coincidence that the entire case against Enron had been paper compiled into Building 7. It's a total. It's just a coincidence that you know one of the lead suspects committed suicide in the car all by himself somewhere. It's just a coincidence. It's just a coinkydink that they also were people who were taking tours of the White House upon the inauguration. It's just a coincidence. There's no connection between the what is it, the puts on United Airlines, the fact that we were running maneuvers about people hijacking planes that drew the Air Force away from the New York area and caused confusion when the actual event was taking place. That was this part of the maneuver? Should we be responding or not responding? And hey, yeah, I understand. Plane hits a building, incinerates, creates enough heat to bring down the total building, and yet.
No plane debris.
Well, no, there was a little bit of debris. There was the passport of one of the hijackers that fluttered down, unsinged, into the hands of the chief of police, who later tried to become the head of Homeland Security, but because of corruption issues, with connections with the mafia, apparently organized crime, was refused the position. It's just a coincidence. There's just so many coincidences here that it has to be a coincidence. And the plane that had no wreckage, of course, was the one that crash landed in Pennsylvania and left a charred hole, but no plane parts whatsoever, which is unlike any other plane crash we've ever seen. So couldn't have been shot down. And the Pentagon, of course, was they made a hole, and there was no footage of a plane from anywhere. And the FAA recordings of the event also apparently were sent to the FBI, and then they were lost. And all the video cameras that were anywhere around the Pentagon, also that footage is lost. It's just incompetence when it came to the evidence, and except for the fluttering thing that didn't burn, even though the plane incinerated inside of a building. And
They still Malaysia Airlines.
I am not a conspiracy theorist on this, but only because I refuse to think about it ever at all in any way, shape, or form. Because it would literally, I wouldn't know who to take arms against. Like if I was to say in the deepest seated vespid of my conspiratorial theory who created this, I would say it was the military-industrial complex, because their hope was that this would lead probably to endless wars in some far-flung country that we placed the blame on, and that we'd be spending trillions of dollars on military. Oh God! Oh no! That's exactly what happened.
You need your Alex Jones heat shield there, Justin. You got to get your Alex Jones heat shield.
This is exactly why I don't like to think about this. I mean, and I'm sure they recovered at least some of the gold reserve that was under What was that? So that we knew there was a gold reserve under the World Trade Center. Is that they never found any gold under the wreckage? Even I thought there was a massive like Fort Knox style gold reserve. Nothing. So was it? I don't.
So I want to know what's plausible to take down Building 7, and I can't think of anything that's plausible in my mind with the level of knowledge that I have in physics and engineering.
So
The fire
The
weakened
governor-
the
what was
structure and
it?
it fell apart. Come on.
no. Who's the governor who was supposed to be? Who was like who says 9/11 more than anybody else? The governor of New York at the time. What was his name?
Giuliani.
Giuliani.
Giuliani. Right. The guy
Really?
who brought down the mob, supposedly. Even though
Wasn't he like caught with prostitutes and stuff?
Oh, well, no, he had a mistress. That's different. That's fine. That's just normal. That's okay. So, not that I would be okay for me, for the record, but it was for him. I get it. Right? He brought down the mob. He's a big shot. Let him do his thing. He had a special command center in Building 7, which is where he was supposed to go if anything bad happened in New York. Could monitor the whole city. Everything was wired in there. Apparently, he didn't show up. But somebody who knew that they were supposed to show up there showed up and was a witness. And in an interview directly after, said that there were explosions. It sounded like they were coming from the basement. And that's what had started the fires, that there was this explosion. They tried at first to say there was roof debris that caused the fire. He said there were explosions in the basement. And he was going to actually testify before the government's 9/11 panel. Unfortunately, he died mysteriously in the hospital, even though he had sort of survived the incident unburned or anything. He didn't have any injuries. It was some smoke inhalation or something. Apparently it killed him the day before he was to testify. Again, it's just a coincidence. This is a real thing. It's a coincidence that happened.
Well,
right?
So Ed,
Although there could be an explanation for an explosion in the basement, which is which I've never heard, although I would theorize it was the non-conspiratorial explanation for an explosion that comes from the basement of World Trade Center that causes and wreaks damage in it, is that there was likely tunnels that connected all of these buildings underneath. Most government buildings, though nobody will tell you this publicly, are connected to other buildings. And I know these aren't government buildings, but we knew they had a train tunnel underneath, subway stations, the rest. These likely had tunnel connections between the buildings underneath for security or other purposes. And very likely, if you have two massive buildings collapse, anything that's connected to them at the tunnel is going to have a tremendous amount of force, and just the air alone uprising through whatever that tunnel structure thing could be, right? So that's one possibility. Although it is weird that I've given it an alibi that nobody has ever told me this is what happened. So I don't know.
There's a litmus test for conspiracy theories. If more than 3 people are involved, it couldn't possibly be a conspiracy. Because there's no way more than 3 people can keep anything a secret.
Well, this is a huge, huge problem for that scale of a conspiracy. Is that you would imagine that it would have to have taken a very large number of people to execute it. More than...
Are there examples of 50-plus floor buildings that have been on fire? This happens regularly, I would assume. Is there other examples of buildings falling down that are 50-plus floors?
No. So every once in a while, they're in the middle of building a high-rise hotel. I don't know why it's always a high-rise hotel in Las Vegas. I assume because the mafia's like, oh, we could build the building, then we could burn it while we're building, collect the insurance, and then build it anyway. Like, I don't know what happens. But every once in a while you see like a massive high-rise building on fire, and then they douse the fire or it burns through the building, but there's still the structure of the building. The building doesn't just collapse on account of it. Because the explanation for the World Trade Center 1 and 2 is that the fuel, which some people have refuted, the fuel gets hot enough to melt steel, but that was the explanation. It's the fuel that made everything hot enough to melt the steel to bring down the buildings. In World Trade Center 7, Building 7, no fuel. So go figure that.
So it does. How many floors was Tower 1? I think was the closest to Building 7. How many floors was Tower 1 roughly? Is that like 100 and some floors or something?
It's like 100 plus.
Okay, so the question is there enough kinetic energy between those two buildings to displace the Earth enough to kind of dislodge it from its foundation and make it unstable?
Maybe. And interesting that it would only be that building. That happened to have the entire case against Enron within it.
We do have Michael Jobin. Michael Jobin, our one fan, who's in the chat area, which I can't get into, but he says no one talks about all the CRT monitors and heavy PCs of the day starting to fall at the top of the World Trade Center, and momentum just could not stop. So maybe all those PC monitors brought the building down.
They were heavy back in the day, you know.
It stuns me. So the explanation, according to Wikipedia, states that FEMA issued a report on the collapse on a preliminary investigation, and it was conducted jointly with the Structural Engineering Institute of the American Society of Civil Engineers. And their preliminary findings that the collapse was not primarily caused by actual impact damage from the collapse of one WTC and two WTC, but by fires on multiple stories ignited by debris from the other two towers that continued burning unabated due to the lack of water for sprinklers or manual firefighting. The report did not reach conclusions about the cause of the collapse and called for further investigation. And then NIST, National Institute for Standards and Technology, was authorized to lead an investigation in the structural failure and collapse of the Twin Towers and 7 World Trade Center. So they drew upon in-house technical expertise as well as the knowledge of several outside private institutions, including the Structural Engineering Institute of the American Society of Civil Engineers, same area, and the Society of Fire Protection Engineers, and the National Fire Protection Association, the American, so there's the American Steel Construction, there's a whole bunch here. And what did they say? The bulk of the investigation of 7 World Trade Center was delayed until after reports were completed on the Twin Towers. In the meantime, NIST provided a preliminary report about 7 World Trade Center in June 2004, and thereafter released occasional updates on the investigation. According to NIST, the investigation of 7 World Trade Center was delayed for a number of reasons, including that NIST staff who began working on 7 World Trade Center was assigned full-time from 2004 to September 2005 to work on the investigation of the Twin Towers. So I'm just trying to find out what conclusions did they draw. There's a lot of information here. NIST determined that diesel fuel did not play an important role, nor did structural damage from the collapse of the Twin Towers, nor did the transfer elements, trusses, girders, and cantilever overhangs. But the lack of water to fight the fire was an important factor. The fires burned out of control during the afternoon, causing floor beams near column 79 to expand and push a key girder off its seat, triggering the floors to fail around column 79 on floors 8 to 14. And they go on from there, but they're thinking that the fire did indeed topple the building.
Right. And that fire that came out of the Twin Tower collapse, how many of the other buildings did it in the perimeter did it set on fire?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, that's always the weird thing about this.
Yeah, but there's going to be more debris closer to the building and less debris further from it. I mean, you had dust and debris that covered probably half of Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
But really close by, I mean, you're talking about a lot of heat in order to do so. That can only happen, I would think, fairly close within the proximity of the Twin Towers, I would think.
I guess there is no, in their study of this, what do you compare this to? Like, what history do you draw upon to make a determination? There's nothing really, I don't think.
Well, experts in demolition said it looks exactly like what they did every day. It looked like a demolition job.
Did they say that
If you
about?
watch a video,
Did they say that about
Sorry?
Towers 2 as well?
I'm not, but I'm not sure. But I know with Building 7, I've seen the video where they do it side by side, a regular demolition and Building 7, and it just goes. That's right.
Just like that.
Yeah.
I guess this conversation, as Justin eloquently said through many of his, it's frustrating, right? It's just a completely frustrating thing because it's so difficult to draw any sort of conclusion from.
Right, and largely, what I draw from, like, I've watched a few of the 9/11 conspiracy, YouTube video stuff that goes out there, and it seems to me like they're elaborating and doing that monkey brain thing where you make those extra connections between things. What if this is what happened? What if that's what happened? But I do recall, like, around the time that when the ground zero dust was settling, there were some really bizarre things. And it was immediately apparent that they were strange. Like the finding of this passport. Like I remember seeing, because I was watching a news report, I remember seeing the plane hit the Pentagon. And I've gone back and I found that newscast again. And they're saying the plane hitting the thing, but you never see the plane in the footage. It's like from a toll booth kind of a thing out in front. They say you see the plane, but the plane actually never appears there. So it's inferred because something hits it. Something it's there, there's frames, there's nothing, then there's the explosion. So that's weird. The other thing I remember, and this is the most conspiratorially prescient moment of the event to me, was I remember watching the live coverage on the news, and an unconfirmed report was passengers on the plane had reported moments before the crash, I think it was in the crash of Pennsylvania, that the hijackers were wearing purple sashes. And nobody around me knew what that meant, but that was something worn by the Iraqi Special Guard. They wore a purple sash. That was part of their uniform, and I remembered this because I from having tried to figure out why we'd gone into the first Iraq War. The Iraqi Special Guard, or Iraqi Republican Guard, or whatever they're called, wear purple sashes as part of their uniform. And so I thought, I know what that means. I know what that means. Iraq did it. That's what that means, right? Now, nowhere else did this narrative come across, and nowhere else was this ever proven or shown. It became this Afghanistan thing, which quickly diverted into a war against Iraq. But I always thought it was interesting that there was, news reporting saying at some point that there were purple sashes worn by the hijackers. Because that to me felt like that sort of, it reeks of that sort of false flag kind of a scenario where you say you're under attack by the person you want to attack, and so you get the right to retaliate as opposed to having to preempt them later. But on the other hand, again, as Pamela said, you would need, so many conspirators to have nobody come forward. Kind of makes it seem like, wow, there's just a whole lot of coincidences. Maybe.
I don't think this could be pulled off today if there was conspiracy involved. The sort of the amount of cell phones with cameras on them now. There's be so much more video available that's completely out of the control of any single entity. But I think it would be difficult to do something if this was some sort of conspiracy.
Yeah, somebody'd screw up, right? It'd be like Dick Cheney's Twitter would be like, just another day, hashtag pulled it off. Like, right? Like, somebody would screw up and just say something, right?
5 minutes ago, we were just talking about how people get brainwashed into religion, or people get brainwashed into thinking that operations like this are for the good of the country. Think how many people saw the cables that Chelsea Manning ended up giving to WikiLeaks. Think how many people had access to them, but only one person leaked them.
Mm-hmm. This is, you know what? That's absolutely right. You know.
Say that. Say it again. I don't understand the Chelsea Manning. I didn't follow it at all. I'm just trying to.
Okay, a lot of people had access to those cables. A lot of people saw the evidence of the war crimes being committed. Only one person leaked them. Mm-hmm. Everyone else, it was okay to do this.
Very much also like the Abu Ghraib scenario. Abu Ghraib, we would never know what went on there had not one person decided to turn photographic evidence over. Right? Like we get.
People get indoctrinated. They think that they're doing the right thing. So just as easily as 5 minutes ago we're talking about how people believe that there's a bearded dude in the sky, mm-hmm. They think that it's the right thing to do. That's how these conspiracies, they
also, even better way to is that what is it, the something of the Americas? Is it the Institute of the Americas? What is it when the CIA flies up Central American killers to someplace in the South and trains them to be better at killing other people? Why is my brain failing me?
Well, you got SEAL Team 6 going around.
No, not SEAL Team 6. This would be maybe Sandinistas or something, right? Who Cuban expats that were supposedly training to take Cuba back. We're gonna help you train to take Cuba back. First, we got this one operation, service test operation. We got this demolition on this building we want you to do. Work that out for us, and then we're gonna go get your country. And at the end of it, you know what? It's like, all right, yeah, we're flying to Cuba. Yeah, that's where we're going. And then that plane goes into the ocean. Nobody ever knows about it. I mean, there is a level of this where I could see a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen motivated people with financial gain at stake to be able to pull something off. Not that I believe it, but or not that I'm going to lose sleep over it, because I feel like the great thing about America is elections happen, and even though these people are still on the planet, I feel like it was to have the power that the people had that was required to pull something off like this aren't in those positions right now.
Okay, I'm going to use that into a segue. I wanted to get to this story sometime tonight. I'm going to sneak it in, and that's about a hacker story. And what you had was a company. They call themselves the Hacking Team. And the Hacking Team works in cybersecurity. Okay. And it sells something called the Remote Control System software to law enforcement and national security agencies around the world. And this is an article in the Guardian. letting them hack into targets' computers, mobile devices, install backdoors, and monitor them with ease. The company's promotional advertising says we can hack your targets with the most advanced infection vectors available. Remote control, the hacking site for government interception. Okay. It didn't disclose its clients, technology behind its software, or the sort of work it was contracted to do until a group of people, what's their name? Citizen Lab hacked them. And then Citizen Lab got in, and all the governments that were buying this people's software, United States government, and the hacking team said, hand to God, we're not letting any nasty people get our software. We're watching our client list. Hand to God, I swear, not invading anybody's privacy. Well, the Citizen Lab hacked into their 400 gigabytes of information. They found, communications from government agencies. Just like the original WikiLeaks thing. And if you go onto the WikiLeaks site, they've actually got a little search engine where you can input like government names and things, and you can actually see communications. And let me see, it's a very long article. I just want to hit the key points. But it says, throughout it, the hacking team has insisted it does not sell to oppressive regimes. Following the report, hacking team goes to great lengths, not to sell to governments that are blacklisted by the European Union, the US, or NATO, and similar organizations. So again, it's a very long article. I'll include it in the show notes. But
by great lengths, it probably means that they're going to charge them double.
I think the U.S. government paid maybe $800,000 or some ridiculous amount of money for this software. Claimed to have spent all that money for this software.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing... Go ahead.
Yes, you should, though. I think you should. I think if you've got you hire them, you test it, you see if it works. If it works, you want to know how and why and in what way it makes you vulnerable to it, and in what way that you can defend against it. This is the spy versus spy world of hacking. Every hacker who is successful isn't just a threat. They're an opportunity for you to utilize what they're doing and for you to learn how to defend against what they're doing. So this is that sort of it's like, okay, you have committed several felonies, hundreds of felonies, actually thousands of felonies because it's so prolific what you've done. On the other hand, we really need to know how you did it, so come work for us. And on the other hand, don't do it again. On the other hand, can you try to see if you can do it again? Because we'd really like to see if what we just did to counter it works. So it's this really, the hacking world is infinitely bipolar in its loyalties. And those who are fighting against hacking being a thing will never win by abstinence. Okay, this is one of those. If abstinence from hacking is your policy, you're gonna get impregnated with a virus. This is what's gonna happen. Okay, you need to understand how to counter and how to utilize in your own hacking warfare each of these. So, wouldn't surprise me in the least that the United States government would fund hackers, would recruit hackers. I think it's United Airlines. I think United Airlines just put out like a bounty for hackers to hack their system And if they do it successfully, if they can, change this flag or do some sort of weird, hacking on them, they'll pay them to tell them how they did it. And
How
so
much?
Right. So it's sort of like, come hack.
How much?
Oh, I don't know. You gotta go, just Google it. I think it's United Airlines that did it because there was some.
Hell yeah.
Some story. They got their systems hacked or a server went down or something. But yeah, there's bounties out there for you to show those weaknesses in security.
Apple, all the big, like Apple, they pay. They'll want you to come in and try to hack them.
Yeah.
And they'll pay you for it.
Absolutely.
Do it. They'll get their. I don't know if it's Apple or somebody else. They actually give a reward if you can get it. They want to know what their security breaches are. You're absolutely right, Justin.
So there's this sort of vicious circle of don't do it unless you do, we'll reward you for it. Wait, but don't do it because there's a penalty for doing it. But
you don't get.
But there's also a reward for doing it. But it's a penalty that comes with the reward that we're going to give you immediately after you get penalized. That we make that go away and give you the reward. Like if you're a 14-year-old kid, you're like, double flip birds. I'm going for it.
Yeah, you get 1 million miles.
Like a New Zealander kid, like a 14-year-old who recently did a big hack job, and they're like, and New Zealand's like, no, we're not going to export them. We're not going to extradite them. No, we're not going to charge them with anything. 14-year-old, get your technology better. We're in New Zealand. We don't care.
I love New Zealand.
Right? But on the other hand, like, that's the kid you want to hire at 14. He's at the top of his game. He's better than you are. There was the Clipper chip. You guys remember the Clipper chip? No, you guys are too young. And by too young, I mean to be conspiratorial minded. That it probably came later to all of you. Clipper chip was an NSA invention, I believe, and it was basically an encryption software hardware combination that was going to make communications completely indecipherable, right? And the government had spent like 6 or 7 years and God knows how many millions or perhaps into the billion range developing this thing. And just as the Clipper chip was coming into play, an undergrad at UC Berkeley, as his thesis project, broke the encryption. And this is the problem for a government bureaucracy. We're going to spend $1 billion on this project, and we're going to create this thing that nobody else can ever decrypt. But by the time they get all the way down the line with this technology, it's moved on at the R&D level, at the university level, at the kid messing with his brand new computer that has 10 times the processing speed of any of the computers that are in play. In that chip or whatever, the Clipper chip production, right? So this is the problem. Technology moves faster than governments can keep up with. So yeah, pay your hackers. Tip your hackers. Enjoy the steak.
Yeah, they should pay cash
at the end of the night.
They should pay cash though, because I just looked it up, and you get 1 million domestic miles. What am I going to do with 1 million?
Oh, is that what they gave? They're not paying cash. Are you kidding me? Yeah, you can travel the world. It's 1 million miles.
No,
that's so awesome. Huh?
Domestic, USA.
Oh, I don't know if we've got that good of a hacker core here that we could.
No, you can't travel the world with it. That's what I'm saying.
It's gotta be international. Well, no. Well, I guess that's okay. So actually, this makes sense though. Okay, this does make sense, Pamela. Okay.
Why would you bother?
No, because here's what comes with you getting this reward of 1 million domestic miles. They don't tell you this up front. It's in the small print. Also, by winning this award, your passport is by default revoked because we don't want you to fall into enemy hands. You are now a weaponized mind. Okay, you have a weaponized skill set that we now need to keep domestic. Go wherever you want, as long as you don't go out of the, probably even the 48 contiguous. Maybe we'll let you into those 2 uncontiguous states. But you got to stay put.
You know, Dale, I got you work for a television station. I'm assuming, I mean, I see the movies, I see people hacking into TVs, and all of a sudden they're taking over the daily news, you know, your daily TV show. This is the black hackers. We've taken over your TV channel. Do you guys have any kind of, I don't know, is that even talked about?
Listen, I've heard of pirate radio. I don't know that I've heard of pirate television.
Okay, so I got a little story for you. When I was a kid, I started building something called Heathkits. I don't know if any of you guys remember Heathkits. But they were little electronic devices, and this was in the 70s. And I took apart tape recorders, and then that moved into, you know, some of the computers that started to come out. Took an interest in that. They're called Timex Sinclairs. I had Apple IIs. I had Commodores. I started learning about software early on in the 80s. In the mid-90s, I started learning about hardwares and different types of hardware called ASICs and FPGAs, field programmable gate arrays. And that led, and this comes from a place where hacking used to be a very noble thing that children did because it was fun. And you took things apart. That's why they called it hacking. And it was just a really delightful, scientifically based learning thing. And that's my roots. That's where I came from and how I got my career started. And so with the TV stations, I actually worked in that area, in that department nationally that did, and again, this is early days before they had departments that were for security. When you get into 1997 to about 2001, there wasn't a ton of security jobs available in that sort of space, but there were Cisco routers available, so you had people that were qualified to do all the routing and distribution, and that's where I came up through the system. And eventually I learned broadcasting later, much, much later, and I kind of came from that area. And I was with another company at one point, and it was a very, I don't want to say which one, but a very large company that got hacked. And all these attacks, and so I've seen them from the inside, there are some very technologically advanced attacks, but most of them just exploit human beings, and that's how you get in. If you can get somebody on the inside of a firewall to click on something on the web, if you can bait click them and make them do something, you can make it so that they can execute a program, and you can exploit it if there's no protection for that or if it hasn't been seen before. And so the whole point is, if they're not technological issues most of the time. Small percentage of the time, it's very highly technical on how they're doing their attacks. Middleman attacks are when you're actually tapping into the system partway into the wiring itself or to the fiber optics, and you're tapping in and you're listening to what's passing through that cable. There's different types of routing attacks, but a lot of it is just, you buy all this security, you have all this security at a company, and I tell you, it's funny because what happens is I call whatever company I want, and I say, hi, I pick an executive that's a high-powered executive, and that, just take their name off the internet and say, I'm Joe Schmo, and I can't log in right now to my Citrix account, and you call into the help desk and say, I need you to get me into the system. I have an important meeting, and you know what? People fall apart, and 9 times out of 10, it's like airport security. It's just, there is no airport security. It's terrible. You can't do it. So, I
What? Where is there no airport security?
well, I mean,
Other than
they've tested airport security, and the last one was a test in the U.S. to see how effective it was. Do you guys remember that study? It was done about a year ago.
Yeah, and they got a ton of like knives and guns and all sorts of stuff there. Although when it works, it works. There was this one episode of, I don't know what the show is called actually now, but it had to do with JFK Airport in New York. Or maybe it's in New Jersey. I don't know. No, JFK. It's in New York.
New York.
Yeah. And there was this wild episode where, you know, you got all your security guys just sort of standing around, and they've got these little, I don't know what, some sort of some radiation monitors on them that all went off. They start beep, 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 and they're like, whoa, somebody's bringing radioactive material through the airport. So they go rushing around, and it's going higher over here, it's low over here, okay, back over here, and they start separating people. Like, okay, you, over here, you, go over here, stand there, you know, separating, trying to narrow it down. And they narrow it down to this one woman, and they start searching her bags and stuff, and she's, you know, slightly, well, I think she's Indian, maybe she's Iranian, like, who's this woman? And it turns out she just had her thyroid irradiated. But it was enough to set off the sensors, and I thought, wow, like, that's pretty intense. That's intense that we have a sensor that can sit in there with the taser and the mace and the billy club, right, that detected this woman's thyroid treatment.
Radioactive pellet, right? Yeah. The radioactive pellet that was left inside of her.
So I mean, but pretty intense that this is, there's levels of security that I didn't even imagine really existed at that level.
You know, as former auditor, not every, but just about every security system I've heard and read about, and I think this used to be true at the airports, the breakdown is who's the person who does it, and how much do you pay them? So you got this multi-billion-dollar security thing, and it's the most sophisticated, and you're paying some guy, you know, minimum wage. He's the person and you don't probably train him. I do remember they were not given adequate training, and the whole system just falls apart.
But you know what? You're right, Ed. And I think I think security would be extremely tough from a human point of view, because can you imagine working at an airport, seeing hundreds of thousands of people pass by you and expected to be sharp on a regular basis? I think that's nearly impossible. I think after a few hundred people, I wouldn't care anymore. I think it'd be exceedingly difficult to be on your A game. Can you imagine how boring that would be?
So this is why my favorite guy at JFK Airport when TWIS went to New York. Like there's a bunch of lines, and you got to go through the security checkpoint. You got to keep moving, and it's just like it's like a cattle thing. Like it's like keep moving, follow the cow in front of you. And there was this one brother there who was like, keep moving, put your back into it, step forward, get closer, get friendly. We all got to be here for a while, but then we get to go. Get close to the person in front of you, keep moving, put your backs into it, get your hustle on. And he just kept going. And he was just like, you know, the guy on the Viking boat or whatever it is, or the crew boat, who's just like beating a drum, like ding, ding. Like, I'm gonna keep this level of making everybody move through this process as full tilt as I can, because I had like 6 cups of coffee before I came to work, and it's the same thing I did yesterday. And he was the only one. Everybody else was, like you say, looked like they were beat up from having seen this scene every day. And it's like, yeah, you got to stand over here. Okay, you got to take your shoes off. All right, remove the belt. You got a belt buckle. There's metal there. You should have figured that out. This is a metal detector. Everybody else is just depleted. But this guy, his line, I'm like, we got to get in that guy's line because that one's moving quicker because he's shouting at people. And that's what I want. I want me and everybody else around me getting shouted out through this line so we can get through it right away. So everybody keep the hustle on. Everybody else, you got the thing beeped, so stand over here. I'll be with you in 5 minutes. Don't move. Like everybody else was just like you say, completely drained of observational skill. And it's all just trying to remember the process that they're on the planet to complete at this point because it's so monotonous. And they've done it 8 hours a day for the last freaking 30 months or whatever.
How you doing, Jani?
Jani, welcome.
Probably just woke up having breakfast.
Michael said he also used to be a Heathkit guy a long time ago.
You know, it's along the lines, one of the first banks, so I go in to audit this bank, and I notice the guy, he's the guard, old retired guy, and he's got a gun. And I'm thinking, okay, wait a second, guy. This is a branch in Danbury. We had just took over. You got this 65-year-old guy in your branch, and he's an ex-cop or something, just waiting to shoot somebody, and he's in your branch with customers. This is not a good idea, people. This is not a very good. If somebody, probably tried to rob me, I don't know, he might have pulled out the gun, and who knows how many people he would have killed or something. The security is just amazing. The lapse in security. Again, he may be by a manager of an area, and they just don't think.
Yeah, I think security is very difficult. I don't know how to do it effectively unless you have, I don't know.
You can't. I don't care what it is. You have to have a test. You've got to have an accurate test of security, and they have tests, and they open their little books and tell them what. But it's just BS for the most. It's not really an accurate test. Well, I looked at the disaster thing that one bank was supposed to follow, and it had a list of people, the people who you're going to call up. Okay, let's see now. We got an earthquake, and you're going to call up some guy in the other part. He's across town somewhere, and he's going to get in. I'm sure he's going to get in and turn on your computers like he's supposed to. Amazing.
Well, I found airport security is hardcore everywhere in the world except Sri Lanka, who didn't care. I could have taken anything. I don't think. They just waved me through, because everywhere else in the world, you have to get all your liquids out and things like that, and you have to have them separate, and they weigh them. And I mean, going through Zurich, man, they check everything on everyone. Everything. Everything is weighed, just everything. But Sri Lanka's, I'm pulling everything out. They're going, ma'am, don't, just walk through, just walk through. I'm like, what? Yeah, just walk through. And so I was able to just walk through. They didn't check anything. And then I get to, that's getting onto the plane. Then I get to Sri Lanka, and I'm trying to show someone my visa so we could go out and about for the day because we had a 7-hour stopover, so I wanted to buy some tea, while I was in Sri Lanka. No one cared. I printed out my little visa thing off the internet before I got there, and I'm trying to show people so I can get out the door, and yeah. So I go out, and I'm like waiting for someone to chase me down. We went out and about for the day, and then coming back in, they just waved me. Yeah. They didn't care. So anyone can get in and out of Sri Lanka. It's no problem. But everywhere else is hardcore security, especially Switzerland. So yeah, I don't know about well, I don't know how people are getting these bombs and things on the plane. If you're saying it's pretty laxed and then they do these audits and people are getting on with guns and stuff, I don't know how.
I don't think it's laxed. I think I run into a lot of grumpy people in airports, and they do all those things. I just don't know if it's effective. And based on the U.S. study, they did, I forget how many thousands of times they tried to sneak things in. they had like a 95% success rate of getting things on a plane. So if that study, if that investigation is correct, if it is, that's pretty scary. But I agree with you. Yeah, I see the sorts of things in airports where they're aggressive, but that doesn't always mean effective.
You know, if they're going to plan something, what you do is you do trial runs, and you find the weak points, and that's where you go. And there's always a weak point in the system. Although I don't know, maybe something like Zurich. Zurich is in Switzerland. They are very well known for being strict. Their technology is usually first rate. Swiss watch. I mean, that's what they're known. Their trains are on time. There's no 1 minute late or anything. Their trains are on time. I'm gonna hit a quick story because it's kind of fascinating, and it's because talking about robots, something we've talked about. Whoops, what is that?
Sorry, that's from the Swiss airline flight. They gave Chelsea a kid kit, and so it's a little cloth book. This is a little picture book. That's all. Anyway, so that's just from flying with Switzerland. Swiss Air.
Okay.
I'll find my army
Oh, go ahead.
that I did in Geneva, but I'll come back.
This is some technology, and this is a model for robots with bacteria-controlled brains. Bacteria-controlled robot. And this is in Virginia Tech scientists. It's a mathematical model to demonstrate that bacteria can control the behavior of an inanimate device like a robot. Basically, we are trying to find out from the mathematical model if we could build a living microbiome on a non-living host and control the host through the microbiome. That is a guy named Reuter in the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences and the College of Engineering. We found that robots may be able to have a working brain controlled by bacteria. And he's going to have future experiments. He's going to build a real-world robot that had the ability to read bacterial gene expression levels in E. coli using miniature fluorescent microscopes. The robots will respond to bacteria he will engineer in the lab. Applications in agriculture, bacteria robot model systems could enable robust studies that explore the interactions between soil bacteria and livestock. In healthcare, further understanding the bacteria's role in controlling gut physiology could lead to bacteria-based prescriptions to treat mental and physical illnesses. He envisions droids that could execute tasks such as deploying bacteria to remediate oil spills. His approach revealed unique decision-making bacteria made by a bacteria robot system by coupling and computationally stimulating widely accepted equations that describe three distinct elements: engineered gene circuits in E. coli, microfluid bioreactors, and robot movement. The bacteria in the mathematical model exhibited their genetic circuitry by either turning green or red, according to what they ate. The mathematical model, the theoretical robot, was equipped with a set with sensors and a miniature microscope to measure the color of bacteria, telling it where and how fast to go, depending on the pigment and the intensity of color. The model also revealed higher order functions in a surprising way. In one instance, as the bacteria were directing the robot toward more food, the robot paused before quickly moving its final approach, a classic predatory behavior. There you go, predatory robots controlled by bacteria. And this is funded by Air Force, the Air Force Office of Scientific Research. We hope to democratize the field of synthetic biology for students and researchers all over the world. In the future, rudimentary robots and E. coli that are already commonly used separately in classrooms could be linked with this model, teach students from elementary school to PhD level that bacterial relationships with other models. There you go. Gut bacteria control us. Now they can control the robots. And it said Red Greendale. Of course, I immediately thought of the Red Green Show. And I immediately get this picture of Red Green's technology, where he controls these little nano robots, right? And the little nano robots, they go into the, your what do you call it? Your blood vessel. And if there's a rupture, they take out the little duct tape and they duct tape up the rupture, and you're good to go.
So yeah, you know what? That reminds me of when I was studying macrophages, a type of white blood cell, and I remember under a microscope they were showing how this white blood cell would attack bacteria, and it was literally like a dog chasing a cat. This little bacteria was trying to get away, and this macrophage was chasing it all over the place. It literally looked like a dog chasing a cat, and that really that changed my thinking of what human biology is when I saw that. When under a microscope, this little blood cell chasing, just like they had thoughts. It was incredible. So yeah, at the bacteria. Sorry.
Go
ahead, Pamela.
No, I was just saying. I was going to say I had a discussion on Facebook the other night with a friend of mine since like 1987, and he's a philosophy major, and we were talking about this kind of thing, and I said basically we're controlled by our gut bacteria, and every thought that we have, every action we have is 99.9% determined by our gut bacteria. And as a philosophy major, he didn't appreciate that.
That number seems a little high to me, that percentage, but
pretty much everything. We don't have any control. It's just the gut bacteria and the drug dealer in our brain, and
Right. It's the drug dealer. It's the monkey brain. It's all the instinct and the activities of the animal world, on top of our reason and our pop culture and our marketing and our everything else. So what consciousness sort of becomes is this emergent thing from all of these influences. And yeah, I'm kind of curious. I would like to see an attempt. I mean, obviously, if you removed all the bacteria from a human being, they would die. We couldn't process sugars. We convert things into the energy that we need to. We would just be gone. And we know that they're involved in communicating things to the brain. So yeah, they're part of the substructure of what it is to be a conscious thinking human being.
Yeah, I mean, nothing showed me more than being pregnant and having a baby, how primitive we are. Just absolutely. I'm quite a reasonable, critical thinking kind of person, but especially when I was pregnant, I was just completely reduced to my primordial senses. Everything down to what I ate, everything, smell. Just, I was saying before, I'm not interested in internet dating. It all seems very nice to get to know someone intellectually before you meet them, but honestly, I go by smell. I'll be out and if someone smells good, I don't care what they look like, I'm following them. It's just all, I've had really ugly guys go, what? Why are you following me? because you smell hot. We can turn the lights off. It's fine. So it's, you know, it's all, we're very primitive creatures. We pretend that we're not, but we are.
That's funny. I'm completely out then because I smell bad and I'm ugly. So it's a double knockout. I'm
You're not ugly. And I don't know what you smell like, but you're not ugly. You're married, though, so you're completely out.
No, this is how I knew my girl and I were meant to be together. She said something along the lines of, "I love that cologne you're wearing," and I'm like, "I'm not wearing a cologne." And it's like, "Oh, you just dig my stink. Right on, perfect. Okay, this is gonna work."
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. I know when I had morning sickness, I only vomited 4 times, but I was nauseated for about 10 weeks. Just constantly nauseated. The only thing that relieved my nausea was the stink, when like the sweaty smell of her dad. If I could just go up and like smell his armpit, and I would feel better. How disgusting is that? But it's true. Because I was carrying his baby, so his smell made me feel physically better. And no other guy made me feel any better. It just had to be the father. So, yeah. We're completely controlled by our primitive instincts.
That is so true.
Who says you smell bad, by the way, Dale? Like, does your wife say that? Because maybe you're not a good...
No, she doesn't
Sorry?
say that. She doesn't say that. I kid around a lot, but when I do climb a lot of towers, and when I climb towers, I don't smell so good after.
But does your wife like your smell?
I don't know. I've never really entertained that thought. I'm going to ask her. Is it about...
Dale, your male pheromones that you put out while climbing towers might explain the dozens of women at the bottom of the tower who've been wandering aimlessly in search of this sexy musk.
I'm literally
forced them to seek out the tower.
Yeah, I'm literally broadcasting my smell from the top of the tower. Yeah.
That's pheromones. That's us. That just about every animal, it comes down to the pheromones. We think it's something else. We think there's some sort of other higher level consciousness thing going on. It's not. It's all the pheromones. All right. Go ahead.
There was some TWIS thing once where there was communication and compatibility of some sort between gut bacteria through the kiss. Right? So this is sort of how, like, you could tell, like, oh, I like this person because they kiss well. What was really happening is perhaps the gut bacteria of the two individuals was like, oh yeah, this is a good match.
Now that's interesting, see, because I pretty much like the smell of, half the guys that pass across my path, but I'm not. I've only really enjoyed kissing a couple of guys. I'm not really big on the kissing, except for a couple of guys in so I'm 35. I've been having sex for 20 years. I have avoided kissing a lot of them when I can. It's like, let's try this position. That way we don't have to kiss, Except for a couple. And then so obviously it's down to the gut bacteria of those couple of guys. It's really compatible with mine.
Yeah, there's a lot of bacteria that swaps. I remember that same story. It was like, I don't know, millions of bacteria are swapped in a very short, simple kiss. So, and if bacteria are controlling a lot of these intellectual elements. I wonder what that means when, you know, 100 years from now, when people are prosecuted in court, they're going to nail somebody else that you kissed 6 months before. Things could get very complicated.
You know, I wonder if we could go back in that time machine and you look at the first primate that evolved into a human-like person, or even before that, the gut bacteria. Which came first? Did the gut bacteria invade that species and evolve it into what they wanted it to do?
Yeah. So there's this concept that can come up where, you know, for bacteria to travel to a location with better resources is exceedingly difficult. They move very slowly, cover very little ground, very little territory. So what they need, if you're a bacteria, what you need is some sort of superstructure, some sort of super colony of collective cells to move you from one location to another. And so then, you know, biology is born, right? Like we are the spaceships for bacteria. We are the deep space exploration of this planet by bacteria. And really, we're just vessels. Yeah, you know, we think we're just relieving ourselves on a tree or whatever the thing is, marking our territory. But it's the bacteria saying, I'll get off at this stop. I'm gonna wait till the next one. Let me off there, and we'll see what what it looks like when we land. Right? So, you know, from a purely biological, pre-sentient sort of animalistic bacteria travel thing, yeah, you could sort of look at the biological activities of life on this planet as perhaps originating as the desire for the genes of bacteria to do a little bit more exploration of the world.
Look at the parasites, Toxoplasma gondii being one, how they're able to manipulate species for their own reproduction. You got those parasitic wasps who actually can go into and control like grasshoppers and make a little grasshopper hop to the water and stuff like that.
Yeah, so, you know, and it's one of those things, too, when you look at hierarchies of things. When you put things in terms of hierarchy, well, we're much more advanced and sophisticated and larger than a bacteria, except there's a lot more of them. And perhaps, you know, our desire to eat something, which our brain tells us we're missing this, is more beneficial to the colony of bacteria in our gut by the trillion than it is to this one individual. By the numbers. By the numbers, hierarchy, you know, life is a grassroots effort. You know, it's the small donors that benefit the most.
Pamela, let me ask you a question, since you know about breast milk. And we already know that there's a big industry of people, of women selling and buying breast milk.
I gotta pause you real quick. This subject comes up from you more than anything else. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to Google a source. I need you to go out there and Google. I don't know if it's going to be on Amazon or eBay or if there's some specialty niche website that's set up for this. I need you to order yourself some breast milk ice cream. Because I think until you do this and try it for yourself, this question is going to puzzle you and keep. And I'm just gonna tell you, it's sweeter than ice.
You've tried it?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
It's good stuff. And I get why babies love it, and I get why kids have a sweet tooth too now because of it. It's sweeter than the sweetest candy that's ever been developed by man, or sugarcane has no comparison to it. So So to quench this question, Ed, I need you to, as a mission, as a not a bucket list, but as like a goal over the next couple of months, to locate a source of, acquire, ingest, and report back to the show firsthand, as a in-the-field reporter, what it's like to have that breast milk ice cream.
You know what, Justin? I think that's a great idea. So let me write this down. You want me to get, is it peanut butter? You want me to get peanut butter? No, wait. Get coffee? You want me to get coffee? I don't know.
Yeah, it's nice in coffee, but I don't like it in tea, personally.
My original question, I actually had a question, is
what is it?
Passing on gut bacteria.
Yeah.
So if a woman, for instance, a new mother, and she's relying on breast milk she's purchased from another woman, is that other woman's bacteria going to affect her child's gut bacteria biome?
It'll be informing the development of the immune system, more so than, well, not necessarily more so. Actually, I could actually see a benefit in that, in the sense that you are infused, at least through non-C-section, you're infused with a good amount of bacteria from the vaginal tract, which informs the immune system and the development of the immune system. You're again informed by breast milk. If you augment that with other breast milk, maybe that is actually like sort of supercharging the immune system to be aware of things that the mother's immune system hasn't encountered yet. That actually might be the way to create a superhuman immune system, is by a diverse diet of breast milk. Wow.
I don't know what other women have been eating.
Now I have to have some more children and practices.
And diversify, yeah, no.
Experiment on my children and see what.
Only if you know what the donor of the breast milk has been eating, because I wouldn't want someone who's been eating KFC to then give my daughter breast milk. Yeah.
Well, what if it made them a little bit more immune to salmonella? I don't like.
No, and Coca-Cola. I mean, someone who goes and drinks like a liter of Coca-Cola a day, and then they give my daughter breast milk. I don't think so.
Somehow, and I could be completely wrong, which I have been often, possibly many times. It
does get into the milk. Whatever you eat is what you're making your milk from.
Right, but I somehow have a hard time connecting the donator of breast milk to a junk food eater type. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe that's like good junk food and drinking money.
I mean, people drink Coca-Cola and eat KFC and other things while they're pregnant. Do you think they're going to stop doing it while they're breastfeeding?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you don't know what you're getting. It's like the fraternity clinic. The fraternity clinic where they had, it was like a sperm bank fraternity clinic combo thing, where you could pick from a selection of, this one's a PhD doctor, this one was a physicist, this guy was an astronaut, and then then they developed genetic testing, and it turned out all of the sperm was donated by the doctor who was heading the fraternity clinic, who has now fathered, many children.
Yeah, see, people say to me, you should go to one of those banks. I'm like, no.
Just look at whoever the director is. It's his. It's his. That's who it is. He's producing plenty for everyone who shows up at the door. That's all. That's why when you showed up to that club that got started based on people who'd used the fraternity clinic, all of the kids look eerily similar. This is what happened. Yes.
Do you remember the X-Files? There was an X-Files episode, and I don't remember the details. The guy, he worked in a fertility clinic. Basically, just an average guy. I don't know, he was, washing floors or whatever. But he had a deformity. He had a tail. And strangely enough, the women would come in and they would say, my baby's got a tail.
I have a tail. It's just on the front side.
What did you say? I don't. I can only see one of your hands there. I don't know.
Oh dear. No sperm banks or breast milk banks for me. I'll donate breast milk, but I don't need any donations. Thankfully. And I know that I'm fortunate in that area.
Alright, we have reached the witching hour on the West Coast, and I am very close to turning into a pumpkin. So I gotta sign out.
Okay.
Okay.
Great having you here.
Great,
I was worried we were going to have, what kind of discussions we're going to get. We got me, the old guy. We got Dale, who's now half asleep. And then you showed up, and I said, hey, 2 thumbs up. This thing is going to go on for hours.
Well, I think I was here for maybe an hour and a half. No idea. But, yeah, I'm definitely going to turn into the pumpkin soon. They're revoking my horses are turning back into mice. My chariot back into the pumpkin. And I gotta go and work for my ugly stepsisters.
Okay, Justin. Great, and thanks once again for inviting me into last night's TWIS.
Oh yeah, that was fun. That was cool.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, Justin, I'll see you.
Good night.
Good night.
Pamela, Dale.
Yeah.
Do you want to get through one more story, or you ready to call it a day or a night or whatever it is?
That's up to Dale.
One more story is good with me, but I should get to bed soon. Work tomorrow.
Okay. Well, you know what? I have my story was about one of my favorite characters, and it was I can talk about him. Have you guys ever heard of Buckminster Fuller? Okay. Nope. He's the guy who came up with the geodesic dome. He's the guy who first used the word Earthship and synergy. He was a Harvard graduate, a Justin-type mind almost. He was absolutely brilliant, but couldn't make it in the world. A complete failure in life. And he was really, actually, his story was one of the things that really helped motivate me. And this is from his Wikipedia entry. And this is in Buckminster Fuller recalled in 1927, the pivotal year of his life. He was feeling responsible for the death of his daughter, Alexandria, who died in 1922 from complications from polio and spinal meningitis, just prior to her 4th birthday. He felt personally responsible for her death, wondering if it might have been caused because Fuller's damp and drafty living conditions. Okay, motivated him to start the Stockade Building Systems Company, business which aimed to prevent affordable, efficient housing. But then he lost his job, no money, and then him and his wife had another daughter, Allegra, which added to their financial challenge. He started drinking heavily, reflected on his family's struggles on long walks, and during the autumn of 1927, he contemplated suicide so that his family could benefit from a life insurance payment. Okay, now he said he had experienced a profound incident which provided direction and purpose in life. And now this gets back to when you were talking about God and being influenced by God and everything. This is a somewhat similar experience he claims he had. He felt as though he was suspended several feet above the ground, enclosed in a white sphere. A voice spoke directly to Fuller and declared, "From now on, you need never await temporal attestation to your thought. You think the truth. You do not have the right to eliminate yourself. You do not belong to you. You belong to the universe. Your significance will remain forever obscure to you. But you may assume that you are fulfilling your role if you apply yourself to converting your experiences to the highest advantage of others. Okay. You know, you have, what's the term? People have these experiences. Jesus maybe had this experience. Mohammed maybe had this experience. You know, where maybe you're dehydrated or whatever. But in any event, whatever it was, it motivated this loser at the age of 32 to completely change his life. He went on to inventing the geodesic dome. He became one of the great philosophers, one of the most influential philosophers of his era. And, you know, so if he could change his life like that at 32, anybody can. And Dale is gone. I killed Dale. I killed Dale with my last story.
he looked like he was going, yeah, I know. Yes. Well, I've never taken any drugs or anything, but I have friends who have taken LSD, and a couple of them have said that one of them put it whoever he was before he tried LSD, he's not that person anymore. He reckons he felt himself go up, whatever that meant. This is exactly how he said it to me. I went up, and then I was someone different. Okay. I can't comment. I don't know. I've never had that experience. But I suppose doesn't really matter why people change and make a better life for themselves. Oh, he's back. As long as they do. I always say, you know, with regards to any of those beliefs and that, as long as they're not hurting anyone else, I don't really care what they believe.
I will end with a personal study before I kill Dale again. Before he drops his computer or whatever else he's doing in his bed, I don't know. Actually, I did attempt suicide when I was 18. And part of it was being raised to believe in God and doing everything everybody else was doing. I prayed, I did everything. I never once heard from God. No voice. Heard no voices or anything. And then I went to my father's Catholic church. I went to class. I confessed my sins. All my sins, my 18-year-old sins, confessed them all. And then I prayed, and then I had First Communion. First Communion! You're getting the blood of Christ into your body. And I felt sick. Absolutely nothing. Some old guy was putting a wafer in my mouth. And, you know, I got completely depressed, went home, swallowed a bottle of pills. Could have been vitamin pills for all I know. I don't know. But I threw up. And then I read about Buckminster Fuller. And here's a guy at 32, guilty over killing his own daughter. Guilt is the enemy. And he just completely transformed his life, dealing in the now, forget about the past. You know, you got a mission in life, and that's it, you know. So anyway, ending the broadcast. For the two viewers who are out there, hopefully we've inspired you with this suicidal talk.
No. Don't kill yourself. Come back next week.
Okay, we will all hopefully come back next week. And